Man, I should have been preparing what I was going to talk about instead of watching Vegetable Police. I learned some interesting facts. The video that nobody is asking for anymore. What is the difference between a full-frame camera and a micro four thirds camera? That's really not what the point of this video is. I've been reading a lot about bigger sensors for cinema cameras, not necessarily for photography. It seems like there's a trend now for bigger sensor cinema cameras like full frame and even 65 millimeter, like the new red sensors, the Monstro sensor. There's the Arri LF and there's the Arri 65. And then there's a Panavision, I think it's called the Panavision 2XL or something like that, which I believe uses the red Monstro sensor. So these are all bigger than Super 35, a lot of different film sizes going back in time. So like anything, it's, you know, it has its pluses and minuses. What is the point of this video? So I've been curious about what it is about full frame and bigger sensors for cinema. Like what is it that people are looking for when they're using these bigger sensors? I did a couple different things. I just set up a couple shots and just to kind of experiment for myself and just so I could see the results. Because I had this idea in my head that a full frame camera can give you a different look just by virtue of a bigger sensor, regardless of focal length. So this first set of tests is just basically just a full frame camera with a 24-70 and a micro four thirds camera with a 12-35 set up the same shot. So the micro four thirds with a 12 millimeter and the full frame with a 24 millimeter. They're like exactly equivalent. The micro four thirds is at an f2.8 and the full frame is at an f5.6. So those are equivalent as well. So the shots should be identical. So I just wanted to see from my own two eyes if there's a difference between how the bigger sensor renders the scene versus the smaller sensor. And that's really all I did here. The results, I will let you draw your own conclusions, but my conclusions are as follows. There's really no difference. Yeah, waste of time. Sorry for wasting your time. Stay tuned. I'm gonna have a couple more tests along these lines, but if everything is equal in terms of focal length and aperture, it looks like your image is going to be the same. One thing I will say, which you can see here, is that there is a difference in terms of dynamic range. And, you know, you'll see when you look at, you know, different cameras and different sensor sizes, typically one advantage that seems to hold true, bigger sensors have more dynamic range. As you can see in these shots here, it's going to kind of give it away, which is which. Bigger sensor camera has a better ability to hold some of these highlights than the smaller camera does. And, you know, that might be sensor technology, that might be image processing in, you know, by the camera. It might not necessarily be a result of the sensor size, but in this case, between these two cameras, the full frame camera has better highlight retention. So here's another set of tests I did, and this is more just a direct comparison of three different camera formats. So we've got a full frame and the micro four thirds and a Super 16, so the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. And instead of having equivalent focal lengths, I just use the same lens on each camera, but the two micro four thirds mount cameras, I have the Speed Booster XL, so it's a 0.64 times magnification. In the frame, I wrote what that equivalent focal length will be. You know, and once again, this is not like a, you know, it's not like a trying to prove anything. It's just here you go, this is what it looks like. And instead of matching depth of field like I did in the first set of shots, here I just left the f-stop the same across all three. So it's at f2.8. But once again, I'm not trying to compare or like try to say that the full frame in this instance is better. I'm just giving you a direct comparison between the three with the same lens. But yeah, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It wasn't really about codecs. It wasn't about color, matching colors and everything. I mean, I set the white balance the same on all 3 cameras, and I tried to match the exposure. I think for some reason I got the BMPCC a lot. It's more underexposed than the other 2. Yeah, I left all 3 cameras in their supposed native ISOs, so 1600 for S-Log3, 800 for V-Log-L in the low ISO range, and then 800 for the BMPCC. So I think what I'll do next, I was kind of just interested to see what the difference is in the way a full frame sensor renders objects or renders the scene as opposed to smaller sensors. And I really don't think it does. I think it all has to do with field of view. So full frame has a couple advantages, and well, really the one big advantage I think is just a wider field of view at any given focal length. Yeah, I don't know, it's all relative because you can get as much compression on a full frame as you can on a smaller sensor. You just need a longer lens, right? And you could potentially go just as wide on a smaller sensor. I mean, I guess at some point there is going to be a wide angle lens that is just wider on a full frame, but you know, for all intents and purposes. But so they were talking, you know, people are cinematographers. Who are they? Cinematographers, directors, talking about shooting on large format, and you know, the three-dimensionality, depth in the frame. And I really think it has to do with being able to basically have just a wider frame, and then arranging the frame in such a way that you get more depth. But once again, it's not necessarily anything that can't be done with a smaller sensor. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. Once again, this is not a comparison to see which one's better or which of the 3 are better. It's just a comparison, just so you can see visually what the differences are between full frame and the Micro Four Thirds, and then full frame Micro Four Thirds and Super 16. Quick side note about the Micro Four Thirds: this is the GH5S, so it's slightly wider than standard Micro Four Thirds. So even in this case, if you go back to the first set of comparison images between the full frame and the Micro Four Thirds, one giveaway as to which is which is that the wider shot is actually the GH5S. Surprise. Anyway, this is getting too long, so anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll be doing some more different comparisons between different sensor sizes in the upcoming future. So sometime in the upcoming space-time continuum. Yeah, all right, so thanks for listening to me ramble and watching me be uncomfortable in front of the camera. All right, see you later.